welcome to the live group coaching roundtable call for the blah 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 something wellness podcast. And this is our first one. You got to start somewhere, and we have a great group. We're gonna be talking a little bit of a recap from what we've talked about prioritizing self-care. So real quick, let's go around and have everybody do a quick intro. Tiffany, we'll start with you.
Hi, all. I'm Tiffany Graff. I've spent over 20 years in public service across 3 states and with multiple roles. I've served as a civilian police officer in both Pennsylvania and Arizona, as well as a military police officer, security forces with the Air Force National Guard. I've served in patrol, school resource officer, narcotics detective, and later in my career, I made the jump over to probation and also worked as a civilian, a crime prevention specialist, and most recently a treatment court provider for DUI defendants on probation. So been around and lots of different departments. Some have prioritized wellness and self-care, some have not. So I'm hoping to just be able to share and learn and see what everyone else has to add.
Awesome, thank you. Mike Lawson.
Hey guys, Mike Lawson. Did 24 years with the San Diego Sheriffs, the last 10 peer support member, peer support coordinator. Retired 2 years ago. Didn't stay retired very long. Got picked up as a civilian for Chula Vista Police Department, which is just south of San Diego. It's about a 300 sworn police department. I'm their first ever wellness coordinator. I have a therapy dog that I bring to work, and just trying to take care of our people, getting them resources, and just having a resource to talk to whenever they need that. Happy to be here.
Hey everybody, my name's Ken Koch, retired law enforcement professional, 35 years in the profession, 23 years with the Flagstaff Police Department in Northern Arizona. Served as the chief of police in Taos, New Mexico for a little while. Went on to be the assistant chief and chief for the University of Colorado's campus police here in Boulder, and retired from the sworn side about 4 years ago. The last 4 years I've been serving as a civilian director for a regional law enforcement training center here in Northern Colorado. And I just recently retired from that position, and I'm going to make retirement stick this time. Third time's a charm.
Are you sure?
Yep, no doubt.
That's awesome. Thank you. Before Chris, you can go. I don't know how it looks on the screen, but I have Chris next. So Christopher.
All right, Chris Zamora, retired after 23 years with Gilbert PD in Arizona. Some of the positions that I've held right out of the academy, they put me undercover to go back to high school. So I did that for a couple of semesters, work patrol, taught the DARE program in the elementary schools. I did a second stint working narcotics. I did internal affairs, robbery, homicide. Also was a DT instructor, fitness instructor as well. Also the co-founder of Law Enforcement Coaching, and I'm currently a clinical hypnotherapist, transformational life coach, and a yoga instructor.
Thank you. And Greg.
Thank you, Tammy. My name is Greg Nottingham. I am retired from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, 31 years, retired as a sergeant in 2015. And back when I was working, wellness and self-care were considered an instant career suicide, and you didn't talk about it, you didn't work on it, and it was not something that was even mentioned. So would have certainly solved a lot of problems back then. And I think that now that we're focusing on more of wellness and self-care, I think we're going to turn out a lot better police officers. We're going to stay longer and then be good even after retirement.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being on this call. We are recapping the month of prioritizing self-care. And we've had a lot of really, really good conversation around the importance of prioritizing self-care and how far we've come, because back in the day, that was not a thing. Wellness was not a thing, especially for first responders. And we're seeing that move and shift, but we still have a long way to go. So before we get into kind of the nuts and bolts of the conversation, what kind of aha or takeaway moments have you had over the last month of looking at self-care a little bit closer?
I'll jump in. I'll jump in with that. I've definitely seen where, and I think a lot of folks that have joined in have expressed this, that I used to think that self-care was a luxury, that it was something that I had to earn, especially if it had anything to do with activities outside of the job. So if it wasn't, oh well, I need to go shooting on my own time. I need to go to the gym for the job. I need to uh learn more skills that would directly transfer to the job. If I wasn't doing that, it felt like I was like wasting time. It didn't feel efficient. Um, and really, it's just the basic self-care that I neglected, thinking that everything had to revolve around the job.
Yeah, I think that again, it wasn't something that we talked about or paid much attention to. I know that even for short times during my career, even if we thought about working out on duty or trying to take care of ourselves, the department would usually shoot it down. It wasn't accepted, and they wouldn't let you do it. And on the fire side, um, they get a workout on duty. They have mandatory physicals every year, and they have gyms in most of their stations that would rival any gym out there that you'd pay to go to. And they get that, and I see the difference in the physical fitness levels of the fire guys compared to a lot of the law enforcement side. And it's just not anything that the law enforcement. I don't think they'll ever do that kind of working out on duty or emphasis on physical fitness like they should. But even after retirement, I think that it's important because I could show you some pictures of me that after I retired, I ballooned up really big, and it took quite a while to finally find that desire to institute some health benefits and self care. And so I took the initiative, and with help and counseling and coaching, finally was able to turn that around. So it's really important, especially after retirement, that you stay physically and mentally fit and take care of yourself.
Let's talk about working out on duty a little bit because that is when we run surveys, that's one of the number one requests is better access to either gym memberships or a gym on site and having the ability to work out on duty. And there's several sides to the conversation. There's the liability standpoint where a lot of people think that it's a liability for officers to be working out on duty, but like you just said, fire works out on duty. So let's dive into this conversation a little bit more. Um, Ken, from a chief perspective, what do you think about when it comes to the liability part?
So yeah, the big L word. First of all, I'll qualify this by saying it's been a while since I've been in the chief's shoes, and I'm sure things have changed since I left. Hopefully for the better. But the thing that always frustrated me, and this was one of my aha moments in the discussions I took part in this week, is we establish a standard of physical fitness in the academy. So you can't tell me that law enforcement can't mandate a standard of physical fitness for its employees. For some reason, this profession has continually allowed to be bullied, manipulated, intimidated, threatened with the L word, whatever excuse you want to throw at it, so that once you get out of the academy, you're no longer required to maintain some form of physical fitness. Now, I will tell you, throughout my career, I was lucky because we were allowed to work out at our lunch break, not on our on duty time, which was a bigger step than a lot of agencies in the late 80s and early 90s were doing. I was with a very progressive department, and that was something I never had to experience where I couldn't work out when I was at work. The University of Colorado allowed me to go on bike rides at lunchtime. I've experienced the positive side of it, but that's only good for the people who are motivated to stay in shape and to remain physical. What about the folks who maybe aren't as motivated? I think we got to remember it's not just about physical fitness either with this wellness story. It's what is it that you need as an individual to maintain your physical and mental wellness? It's not necessarily spending time in the gym. So there needs to be a variety there as well.
Ken, you brought up a good point with when it comes to the standards, right? Most agencies, in order for you to get hired with a police department, you've got to be able to run the mile and a half within a certain time, do a number of push-ups, do a specific number of sit-ups, and then also complete some kind of obstacle course, right, under a certain amount of time. Those standards aren't regarding that agency specifically. Those are the standards that are used in order to graduate the police academy. You've got to meet those standards, right? So some agencies don't really care about standards. They just want to hire people that can get through the academy, right? And how do we know this? Because immediately when those officers go to those individual agencies, there's no longer fitness standards, right? So I agree with you. We should have fitness standards because it's a liability when it comes to if you can't do your job because you can't jump over a wall or because you have to run a quarter of a mile to get to a suspect or to get to a victim because you're gassing out too quick. You become a liability, and you could not only injure yourself, injure your fellow officer, but also members of the public. So I think it would behoove every agency to really look at their standards and why not? Why don't we have fitness standards? What is the big deal? If the argument is, well, over half of our department won't pass, well, there's your answer right there. Why you should input a fitness standard. Tiffany, did you have something?
Well, actually, it's fruit fly season here in North Carolina, so I was just kind of
Fruit fly fitness right now.
But
I told you,
I
get the
will-
chopsticks.
I will add that I've worked at a department that did have a physical fitness standard, and annually we did do that. And I've worked for a department that did not, and there was a big difference between the I would say the readiness of the officers in both departments. And I will say, though, that for the agency that did have the regular PT expectation, one issue that we did see was that standards were not being being routinely enforced across the board with all officers. So I think that while it is important to have those standards, it's also just as important for leadership to be consistent when making sure that if we're going to hold people to a standard, that it's applied throughout across the board, and that there are reasonable accommodations for folks who legitimately have been hurt on duty or on light duty, and that there is a policy in place before you have that situation, because it seems like sometimes when we are reacting in hindsight with policy, it doesn't get applied fairly. So that would be what I would add to that.
Well, one thing that you have to remember also is that this job takes such a toll on our nutritional habits, our eating, our sleep. It is at the same time just tearing us down physically and emotionally. And there's no way they don't take that into consideration. They bring you on as the best person that they can get, and then they just absolutely let you degrade and over the course of your career, because your eating's all messed up. You're eating, at weird hours. You're eating whatever you can get at an AM, PM, or you're drinking lots of soda or whatever, and your sleep's messed up. So physical fitness and self-care, to me, would be the answer to fixing a lot of that. Eat better, plan better, and exercise, and take care of yourself. But the job in general just takes so much out of you physically and mentally. I'm surprised that more departments aren't concerned about the health and wellness of their officers.
Mike.
Yeah, so in the San Diego area, there's at least 5 departments that have a workout on duty policy. What I'm trying to do at my current department is we're calling it a wellness hour. And just like Ken said, like, it's not all about physical fitness, but talking to officers, coaching officers, they're just exhausted, and the workouts, by the time they go home, they're ready to just lay down and get ready for the next day. We got to do better as police departments, providing time for our people to do these things. To me, it's absurd. Like, again, we go through the academy, and then what happens after that? The assumption is that we're supposed to be in shape, right? If you talk to friends, the general public, I tell them that we have no fitness standards, and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, you have to be able to do these things. So we got to do better. We're moving the needle. Departments are doing it. And so the more you talk in the wellness field, it's happening. And so if you're a department that currently doesn't have that, I would look into that. And again, it's just giving back to your people, your return on your investment. You're going to have a better officer. Again, if they work out or not, at least you're giving them time to decompress, do some mindfulness techniques, yoga, whatever it is, just to kind of take a break. Again, your return on your investment is going to be a better officer mentally and physically.
Yeah, let me, if I could just expound on that from the leadership perspective. Mike, something you just said jogged my memory from a podcast I was involved in earlier in the month. The comment was made, and I experienced it personally. I'm sure everyone on this panel has, and all the viewers have as well. The minute you give cops something, they want more. The minute you give them something, they won't use it, right? So I think you also have to go a step further and really look at not only making it available, but making it mandatory. One of our guests in the podcast out of the state of Florida shared with us that his department actually has a kiosk outside the gym. And the chief of that organization made it clear to his command staff, thou shalt work out at least 4 times a week. And they have to check in through that kiosk to prove they were there. So going back to this issue of setting standards, it's one thing to give cops something. It's another thing whether they're going to use it willfully and voluntarily, or if we're going to set a standard and an expectation that's going to be inspected. I really think that's the next step that we need to look at.
That would be so my agency about 20 years ago, they started that program working out on duty. And at that time my agency was about 200 officers, sworn officers. Now I think they're up to about 300. And the last hour of shift is called the admin hour. And that's where you can come in off the street, unload your car, take your uniform off. If you have paperwork that needs to be finished before you go home, that's priority. Get your paperwork done, right? This is how they sold it to whoever they needed to sell it to. However, if you're caught up with paperwork, you can work out on duty. We have a DT room. If you want to roll around, if you train in BJJ or MMA or whatever, you can roll around, do some sparring in there as well. Or you can go for a run. So what we found doing that is, you're going to get some people that don't ever use it, right? That's just the reality of it. So mandating it, I think, would make it easier, I think, for people to get in there and make it habit, right? Especially for those that have never worked out at a gym, because believe it or not, there are some people that have never stepped foot in a gym. So doing that, it's kind of foreign to them and they kind of freak out about it. But what we found is that teams started working together. So sister teams are teams that overlap, right? The night, so for example, the day shift would come in at 5 a.m. Night shift works until 7 a.m. But if something kicked out, like an in custody, a call that was going to result in an in custody arrest, day shift would jump on it so that the night shift guys can get their hour workout. And then at the end of the day shift, the swing shift would be on. If a day shift officer, that last couple of hours of their shift, if they got sent to a call where potentially you're going to get an in custody arrest, the next oncoming team would step up and say, no, give that to me, let them get their admin hour. So what we started seeing was a lot of teamwork between different officers that never would have talked to each other otherwise. But again, it showed officers how to maintain their scheduling, right? So if you got paperwork that needs to be done throughout the shift, instead of holding it for that last hour, officers would get it done throughout their shift, right? Because they wanted that last hour to work out. So time management, we learned how to do that perfectly so that we can get our workout in, right? And then on top of that, teamwork. And then on top of that, if you have a good sergeant who really brings team cohesion. I had a really good sergeant at the end of our shift. He would make sure we all worked out together. And if we were going to go run, we'd all run as a team, or we would lift. Or I was a DT instructor. He'd have me put the class through some DT drills, right? So you get it. Not only are you using it for work, but you're getting a workout out of it. So I think implementing an admin hour at some point in the shift, it's going to benefit your agency. The one number one complaint we get, and it's usually from a commander or above. They cringe when we bring up the admin hour whenever we visit different agencies. And the argument is, well, our officers don't have time. They're going from call to call to call. And we just can't do it. Well, that answer in itself tells me you need it. If your officers are going from call to call to call, chances are they're burning themselves out. Eventually, they're going to burn out completely. And now you've got no officers to cover the street. So again, it's always the upper level commander or above that's always saying, no, we can't do it. Pretty sure if you talk to your agency, talk to your people, you could figure out a way to get it done. So, Tammy, did you have something?
Well, I have a lot.
Okay.
I took notes. I wanted to come back to what Ken was saying about mandating. So we have started recording our navigating toxic work environments for the next month. And that was the theme of it, of what we found is when it comes to wellness within a department, we came in with coaching of like, we don't want to mandate coaching, and the departments don't want to mandate anything, especially after COVID and the masks and the vaccines and all of the mandates that came down. Departments are very hesitant to mandate things at this point, and rightfully so. However, what we have found being in the wellness circuit in this space is those that are into wellness are the ones that will show up, and those that need it won't. So you do need to mandate these things, at least for getting it started. While you're teaching you're teaching everybody new neural pathways is what you're doing. You have to retrain the brain and retrain your department culture of, we do work out, we do have fitness standards, we do check in with a coach, we do see therapists, and it's all okay. And you're not going to be looked at differently. You're not going to be ostracized or cut from the group. You're not going to have career suicide. This is a new way. So as you're moving and pivoting in a new direction, it does need to be mandated. And the people that need it the most are going to be pissed. They're not going to be happy about it because they're not happy. So you need to understand, if you get that pushback, you get the defensiveness, I don't need this, this is bullshit. Great, you're still going. Talk to me in 6 months. Let's check in. Okay. So that's kind of what the consensus from all these conversations, the trainings that we go to. And the funny thing is, all of the trainings that we've been doing, we do duty driven on a regular basis for departments across the country, and we speak at conferences. And the line level officers that are showing up to these trainings are saying this should be mandated. So when the officers are saying it should be mandated, that's where command's like, oh, okay, maybe we do need to mandate some things. Let's look at what that looks like. Knowing that you will get a little bit of pushback, and that's okay. The other thing I wanted to say about what Tiffany was saying about having, those standards for all you guys. With the standards, yes, and you don't want to just have a blanket standard, because the reality is a 40-year-old is not going to have the same standards as a 20-year-old. In my fitness journey, I have come to the realization I will never again hire or work with a 20-something-year-old male personal trainer. I will not do it. I got injured, I got pissed, I didn't get results, and he didn't get it, and it mentally messed me up, because I am a 40-something-year-old female with different sets of issues now. So I need somebody that understands. So if you're gonna have your standards, have a kind of like a sliding scale of standards. You need to understand that age is going to factor in. You're going to understand that if you have been injured, whether in the line of duty or not, that's going to factor in. So you don't want to set people up for failure. And if they're already in a negative headspace where they're having a hard time being motivated to work out, and now all of a sudden they can't meet this standard, that's going to derail them. So you want to have realistic expectations and standards for everybody on a sliding scale. And then my last little thing that I wanted to talk about, I want to kind of move into talking about admin leave a little bit more. and how we can do better with admin leave. But before I navigate the conversation there, does anybody else have anything they wanted to chime in? Admin and leave it is. Okay. So there are a lot of different reasons that somebody goes on to admin leave. It can be a physical injury. It can be for women, it can be maternity leave or whatever. It can be mental health. And I was just watching a video by Travis House, and he was talking. I need to find it because it was a great clip. He was saying that when an officer gets shot in the line of duty, what happens? Everybody shows up. Everybody shows to the hospital, everybody's doing their social media posts, everybody's like, hey, this is a hero. When they come out of the hospital, the departments are there, they're lined up, you're clapping, you're celebrating, this is now a hero. But if somebody says, hey, I need to go into rehab or I need to go see a mental health professional, now they're broken? That doesn't make any sense. They're saying, hey, I need some help. So just because it's not a physical in the line of duty injury, you didn't get shot, but you took some energetic mental hits, we need to again shift that culture and say, hey. And so one of the biggest things that I have heard, one of the biggest pain points from our clients and that people I talk to is if something happens that they end up on admin leave, they're alone. Nobody talks to them. The department doesn't reach out. And so let's kind of let's unpack that a little bit for departments before I go any more on my soapbox tangent. Why? Why do you guys think that when somebody goes on to admin leave, and we do sometimes call it sadmin leave, which that's a whole nother thing we need to get rid of, why do you think nobody reaches out to them?
I think part of it, Tammy, might be the fact that admin leave could cover a number of different things, including if if you're under investigation for something or you got an IA going and they put you on admin leave. Everybody else, if they don't know what's going on, they just get to stay away, stay away, stay away. You know, don't call them, don't talk to them. They can't talk about anything. You know, you can't say anything to them. So I think people just tend to stay away when they hear admin leave. And I think that's probably a big part of it is they don't know whether they can or not. You know, they don't know whether is it because of an IA or is it because of something else that, you know, I don't know if I can talk to them.
Yeah, I will share with you, and this was not my idea. I never had an original idea in my entire career. I stole my ideas from other far more intelligent people than me. But every department that I had a leadership role in was assigned a liaison representative to that officer or their family, and their responsibility was to reach out 2 to 3 times a week just to check in. And it was in policy. It was a program that we put in place, very similar to peer support. And it didn't matter whether you were the subject of an internal affairs investigation where you were being accused of something very, very bad, or if you were involved in an officer involved shooting, or you were off for mental health issues. The individual who was assigned as the liaison was briefed on, look, you can talk to them about anything in their personal life that they're willing to talk about. Just don't go here. Just don't go to this issue. Don't go to that issue. And if they try to go, be as respectful as you can and just let them know, look, that's something that I can't talk to you about as your liaison. I'm here to check in on you, see if you need anything. How's the family? Do we need to put a meal train together? What can we do to help support you? And it was very well received at every department I worked with.
Yeah, my department, they send me anybody that's on any kind of leave, medical leave, admin leave. And just again, coming from another department, because I didn't grow up in my current department, people look at me a little more neutral. So they give me that list and I check in those people. And some people, you know, basically say, thanks for checking in. Other people, we have further conversations. But having that neutral person, again, it could be a chaplain, it could be a wellness coordinator. Peer support's great, but I'm just having done peer support for many years, that's not always the solution just because it hits too close to home. So having that neutral person, again, chaplain, wellness coordinator, it could be one of our coaches. I mean, think about that. It's somebody that's maybe been through that. I've been through leave, workers' comp, like it's a lonely feeling, but just having someone to talk to is huge. So, yeah, just offering those resources, but making sure they actually use them and somebody's checking in, just like Ken said.
Chris,
And I add too that there's like Mike had pointed out with the different types of leave, they all I mean you're talking about admin leave, maternity leave, bereavement, medical leave. The common thread I think between them is the officer that is out on leave may feel or be made to feel inadvertently through people within the department that because of their absence, they are creating a burden for other officers to then pick up. Especially when you're working in a department where you're understaffed or you don't have the best coverage. I myself needed to go out on bereavement when a close family member passed, and I was given a little grief about it because it also coincided with a scheduled training for our SWAT department. So it made me feel like, oh, geez, well, the funeral's out of state. I should get 5 days, but maybe I can quickly get there and get back. And I think that it just any type of leave has a negative connotation that, oh man, now my buddies are having to cover for me. So I think there's that for the officer too.
Yeah, you guys, it depends. It depends on why that officer's on leave. If it's admin for an IA, can be very different than FMLA leave, right? For you're taking 2 or 3 months off. Sometimes officers just don't know the IA side. Can I reach out to this person? Yes, we're friends, but I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get them in trouble. In the meantime, the person who's on admin leave is feeling left out or forgotten about because nobody checks in on them. And I think it's just a lack of communication. I don't think officers really know what to do in that case because also usually it's the department will get a memo, at least for my agency. So and so is on administrative leave. He or she's not to be allowed in the building. I mean, when you see that, you're like, oh man, something must. But of course, it's an IA, so nobody can talk about it. For those that are on admin leave, I would say yes, it's tough to be in that position. Try not to take it personal if nobody reaches out, because we tend to create these stories that don't really exist, right? Nobody likes me. Everybody thinks I'm guilty, or they're going to fire me. Whatever that case might be, is don't fall into that because that will put you in that dark place pretty quick if you let your mind just wander. So just know that these officers that aren't reaching out to you, they might be your friends. They probably don't know what to do. They probably don't know what to say because we can talk to the public, but we have a lot of trouble talking to each other interpersonally, right? Connecting with each other and just talking sometimes. So try not to take that personal. I know because of what I teach duty driven, one of the phases is the breakdown phase. And I put admin leave in the breakdown phase. So anytime any of my old coworkers who are still active, if I hear that they're on admin leave for whatever reason, I reach out to them because I know, and it's usually the same thing. Nobody reaches out to them, right? So I reach out to them. We have lunch and we talk, and I think that's important. When I took FMLA, I took 3 months off. My closest inner circle friends would reach out to me and would invite me to go have lunch with them. And I would always come up with an excuse not to, right? Because I was going through my own stuff. But my close friends wouldn't take no for an answer. And believe it or not, that actually helped. Being able to talk to somebody and to let somebody know, here's what I'm going through. I'm not on admin for an IA. I'm on admin leave for FMLA to try to figure out what's wrong with me. That actually helped being able to talk to people. So
well, will you elaborate a little bit more on that your close friends didn't take no for an answer. So if you're in that in that dark space, you're off for whether it's mental health, addiction, divorce, death, whatever it is. Will you talk a little bit more to what did those friends do that, because you're stubborn, like I love you, but you're stubborn. So when you don't want to go do something, you're not going to do it.
I'm an introvert, number one. So I don't really like to have my business out there, right? So I keep everything pretty close. And so when I went on FMLA, I was dealing with PTS, depression, anxiety. I was going through a separation with my now ex-wife, and my son being separated from our home. And I went and I spiraled out of control. I went into a dark place. And so I took 3 months off. And when you take FMLA time off, you want to use that time to try to get yourself to a better place. So, right. So you can come back to work. Find yourself some balance. Well, I didn't do that. Instead, I isolated at home. Inadvertently, I isolated. And so my closest friends kept calling and wouldn't take no for an answer. So finally, one day, I told my buddy Mike, "Yeah, let's go meet for lunch," because he threatened to come over to my house if I didn't meet him, right? And so we went. We had lunch, and he said, Where have you been? I haven't seen you in a couple months. What's going on?" And this was the very first time that I opened up to another officer what I was going through, right? Depression, anxiety, crying for no reason, panic attacks, and then my separation. And and then he smiled at me when I brought that up to him, right? And which I kind of took offense to it. Like, this is the first time I'm actually opening up, and you're going to smile at me. And he said, "I thought I was the only one going through this." You see, he was going through something similar, not exactly the same, but similar things. And he too thought he was the only one that was going through it. So it actually brought him comfort hearing that I'm going through it. And then it brought me comfort knowing that he's going through it, because this is a squared away cop. This guy gets into all kinds of stuff I've never thought he would ever experience. I thought it was just me. I was weak. I shouldn't be a cop anymore. I'm the worst cop ever. So to hear that just by talking to each other, communicating, that was huge, because the light bulb went off. Oh man, I'm not the only one experiencing this. Other cops are other good cops are experiencing the same thing. So there is a benefit to reaching out and to talking to your coworkers, to your friends, if they're on admin leave, because you don't have to talk about the reason why they're on admin leave. Just having that communication back and forth, that could be enough to help them maintain a level of balance.
I'd like to jump in on that because when we're talking about communicating what our needs are, I think that there is, of course, the fear of how we're going to be perceived when we are honest with each other, and just from our fellow officers. And I think that it would be worth mentioning that sometimes there is an actual repercussion that one can face uh, from leadership, as far as when you do want to take some time off or do need to request leave. And I know that maybe not a lot of other officers have experienced this, but I have worked for a department that when you could no longer, due to pregnancy, you could no longer go into the field, that is when you needed to start your maternity leave. So an officer could maybe no longer go out in the field at, say, 8 months pregnant, but then they would have to start their maternity leave at that point, thus leaving less time once the baby actually came. So in my situation, I concealed my pregnancy for as long as I possibly could, because I knew I would be reassigned from my specialty position and that I would probably be replaced. In addition, we have a lot of officers that serve in the reserves or the guard with the military, and I had an opportunity for a deployment that I was really excited about. And I had also just made detective. Um, so I was told that it would be very difficult for me to go out on this deployment with my unit and come back to that specialty assignment. And that's understandable, but there are real life repercussions too, whether intentional or not, that an officer can face when they do decide to ask for leave.
That's a good point, because when I took 3 months off, I was on the homicide unit. You can't be on a homicide unit and be gone for 3 months, and your coworkers are taking up the slack, and then I've got cases that aren't being followed up on. So yeah, were there repercussions from that? Yeah. I had a conversation with my sergeant. I could tell he was struggling. He didn't say anything, but he was struggling to basically tell me I'm probably gonna be reassigned back to patrol. I made it easy for him by saying I'm gonna go back to patrol because that's where I need to go right now. And it's funny because when I said that, I could feel the heaviness on the phone call just go away because I could tell he was trying to get to that point. He just couldn't get to that point. Right. So yes, it does. It does happen. And here's the thing, if it happens, then you got to move on. You cannot dwell on that, right? If you took some time off because you needed to, and then you get reassigned in the process, then you know what? It happens, right? But don't dwell on that because that will just you'll spiral out of control. If you get reassigned, you go back to patrol. Okay, cool. Let me relearn patrol. Let me do my thing. Let me regain my balance. Okay, doesn't mean you're not going to be able to go back to that other unit later on, but because I know if I would have really held on to that, like you guys pushed me back onto patrol, I wouldn't have got through those final years of my career. I would have been really upset with the department, with everybody. It's not going to help me, right? So it's to move on. I needed this time off. I got it, and now I'm going back to patrol, and now I'm going to relearn patrol and do my thing and get my time in. So, yeah.
I have lots. Well, and we've talked about it before of departments need to not treat going back to patrol as punishment, or like it's a negative thing, and then shifting the mindset. If you were in a specialty and you are going back to patrol, at one point you were really excited to be on patrol in the first place. That's what you were trying to aim to get to. So now you're looking at it, you've had all these years on, you've done these, specialties, and now you have to go back to patrol. Shifting the mindset. Chris, through his career, has been in positions at certain times where he didn't enjoy it. He didn't enjoy going from undercover to IA. Wasn't happy about it. And yet, in the future, that part of his career has served him, our business, for the best because he learned different things. So when you're going back to patrol for a minute, and I say for a minute because that doesn't mean you're there forever. You can go back and be like, okay, things are evolving and shifting so much that there's new stuff to learn. So it's like, okay, I'm going back to get a new education, a new perspective, new compassion, whatever that is, so that I can be better over here. Chris, do you want to add a little bit to that?
No, I mean you got to shift that perspective. If you get sent back to patrol from investigations, when I went back to patrol, there was no call that I feared or that I was afraid of because I was all kinds of detectiving, right? So I could run a death investigation. I mean, they really didn't have to call detectives out if I was on that call, but it was a great feeling knowing, I don't have to deal with the death investigation. This is you guys, but I'll take the initial, right? And I loved it. It was like awesome because I'm like, sweet, I don't have to see it for hours. I don't have to go to do an autopsy, right? The only one call that did offer me stress, Greg, you'll appreciate this, but were DUIs. I just could not do DUIs. DUIs stressed me out. And Greg, you're a DUI freak. I looked at officers like you as walking on the water because if you would come to my scene and take this DUI from me, like, dude, you were a god to me because like I hated DUIs. That's just one of the things that I just was never my thing throughout my career. Everything else I could do, right? So you got to look at the perspective there, shift it.
I'll take your DUI. You can take my traffic accidents.
Oh, I'm all over that.
Well, I wanted to also talk about what Tiffany was talking about maternity leave. And let's talk about women for a second, because women have had to adapt to a male environment. We know law enforcement and military is all very male driven, masculine, and they've adapted. And as times are changing and evolving, there's these push for, I think the incentive was like 30% of the workforce by 2030 is women, 30 by 30. And they're looking at bringing more women on and understanding there's certain things of women where it's not a punishment. Maternity leave shouldn't be treated as a punishment. It shouldn't be looked at. It's like, hey, if you have a woman that wants to stay on and she becomes a mom, she's actually going to be a better cop. She's going to be a great detective. I'll tell you that. Women are great detectives. We can figure anything out. We can find that shit. But Tiffany, do you want to speak on from the female perspective just a little bit more what you would like to see evolve a little bit for women? Just throw it to you.
Oh, there's so much. There's so much. You know, I've worked in a few different departments, so I've seen where it can work great and where it really needs some improvement. And it varies so much from department to squad, assignment to assignment, that it's hard it's not a monolith, you know, there's not this is how women in law enforcement are treated. Just as with any group, you know, it's not a monolith. So for me, I've had some really great experiences working under and with supervisors who understood the differences that, and I'm not saying accommodations or you know, different standards, but gave me I think a voice when, like, for example, I was the only woman in SWAT school. And when I went there, one of the lead instructors asked me if I knew that it was SWAT school. And I was like, yeah, I know where I'm at. And oftentimes, especially like when we would go to the yearly narcotics association conferences, I would look around and it was always, you know, big burly dudes with as many tattoos as they could get away with and as much facial hair as they could grow in you know, 6 months time. And there were very few people. I was often in a room, being, you know, a woman and a person of color, where I was often in the room where no one else looked like me. So you know, that was just something that, when I had great leadership and great coworkers, they noticed that. I didn't have to bring that up, and they would make space for me to, hey, let's let Tiffany do the search warrant entry. Let's, maybe she doesn't always have to be the bait or the prostitute and the undercover you know, stuff. So it really is just being afforded the same opportunities that, you know, you really don't think about, but if you are sometimes, you know, on the outside looking in, it can be just, you know, not a part of the baseline, you know, opportunities. So yeah, there are some real differences, but I think we're more alike than not. But just not being made to feel othered has that's when it has gone right. And I've worked with some great folks, and I've also worked in some departments where leadership has said that women don't belong in law enforcement, and that sentiment started at the top and was echoed throughout the chain of command and was a part of the line officer mentality. So it was difficult. I have been in a department where I was the only woman. I've been in a department where I was one of three. And and also going from law enforcement to probation, which was much more, law enforcement is about 10 to 12% women at this time. Probation is closer to 50% or more. So there's a lot to learn, I think, from other you know, public service career fields where there are more women represented.
Thank you for all that. You guys have anything you want to chime in? All the guys are like, nope.
Just,
Well, I
just
mean,
being able to talk about it is important. Yeah.
you know, that stigma that, you know, women in law enforcement, I've never really, you know, it was really weird to me because I've worked with women in law enforcement. Stephanie and Mice, one of our coaches, we worked undercover together. And I never doubted that she couldn't, take care of me if I got in trouble or vice versa, right? And then working with female officers on patrol, I never really had that, that they can't do the job. And it struck me as odd one year when one of the female officers told me that she was at a training specific for female officers. And I asked her, why are you at that training? Like, what's for female officers? Like, I don't look at you like you're a female officer. You should have your own style of training. It was weird to me to hear that. And I don't want to offend anybody, but it was just weird because I never looked at it like that. It's like, if you got a uniform on, you're a cop and you're going to back me up just like any other cop is going to back me up if I need help, right? So when she mentioned that, to me, that was just odd. It was just weird. And it kind of still is. Not going to lie, it still is a little bit weird that there's a specific training for female officers. Um, what do you guys think about that? Or Tiffany, what do you think about that type of training? Have you been to one?
Yeah, actually, thank you for, weighing in on that. I've been to an amazing training that was specifically it was undercover survival for women. And oh goodness, I'll probably date myself. I think it was Charlie Fuller, who has
Yeah.
done a lot of training for undercover narcotics. But it was an amazing experience. For the first time, I was in a room full of women. There were FBI, there were state, local, sheriff, everywhere. And we were able to share stories and experiences and learn things specifically meant for, not only, narcotics, and undercover, which is important, but how women, can keep themselves safe, uh, you know, putting those boundaries up of, oh, really? I don't know if I feel comfortable going into this, drug house with 16, outlaw motorcycle gang members, not wearing a wire, and the pressures that all officers can face when being asked to, perform those roles, but from a woman's perspective. So I thought it was great. I've only had one opportunity like that, and I'll always remember it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that because you're going to come across different situations versus a male undercover, right? So you're going to be hit on probably by drug dealers and what have you. And yeah, I can definitely see the difference there in training. I guess I was more talking about like patrol wise, policing in general wise. But yeah,
Has anyone
but
else
I definitely
heard of
see
that?
that.
I was just wondering if anyone else, from other departments may have heard of that for their officers or, no? Ken,
No.
you have?
Yeah, I mean, there are resources out there, not just for females, but for officers of color that have their own specific training in their conferences. So there's that sense of camaraderie, I think, within a specific demographic within the profession that either feels the need for that kind of camaraderie, that specificity, or really has a true need to get together with their own peers to discuss how their career is in the profession instead of just how it is for those of us who are males. I happen to be very blessed to be married almost 33 years now to a sheriff's deputy from Northern Arizona. She retired after 21 years, and I will tell you she's the best cop I've ever known. There are reasons for that. One, because she is female. Two, because she spent the first part of her career working in the jail and she learned how to talk to people instead of how to force people to do what she wanted. And if anybody knows how to communicate, it's females, right? So, from that sense, they're better than we are, quite frankly. And for that reason, we need more of them. But Chris, to your point about, it was weird to me to hear that females had a female only training. I can tell you, I didn't experience her things and challenges, but I heard about them when she got home, and I tried to be empathetic and relate. And she faced everything from fellow cops coming on to her to doing very disgusting bodily sound stuff in front of her and just treating her like one of the guys. And to her credit, man, she was one of the guys. She never filed a complaint. She never complained, any of that kind of stuff. She was a true cop's cop, and I think you could ask any one of her fellow deputies, and they would tell you that. Even 15 years removed now, but she faced things in her career that I could not possibly even consider or think of happening to me. And I think being able to go into a safe space, like Tiffany said, where you have peers who also experience those same things and can share how they dealt with it, whether their response was effective or ineffective, that's powerful. And yeah, I'm thrilled to see those kinds of things within our profession, because that ties back to specificity and wellness.
Well, and that makes total sense because I'm not getting it because I was never there, right? I can't say I know what a female's going through. So why would I understand that, right? So now it's beginning to make sense, like why there would be a separate type of training. So yeah,
Well,
I got that caveman brain still going.
and I've stayed quiet because I don't want to overstep because I'm not a cop, so I don't want to overstep on the female role for that. But as a female, there are things that men don't even have the awareness. I didn't realize, I think we've all had this conversation in the background before. You guys don't even know that in every single bathroom stall that women go into, on the back of the door, there's, "Are you in danger? Do you need help? Are you being trafficked? Are you with a abusive person? Are you kidnapped? Here's a number to call for help." Everywhere. Everywhere we go, we have those flyers because that's the one chance that a victim of whatever has the opportunity to maybe get some help. And that's not even in most men's awareness that, going to the grocery store, we have to watch our backs. We have to pay attention to what kind of car is parked next to us. If we're walking with our kids, like we're targets. Chris, you do have the awareness because we you teach women's self-defense classes, and you've seen, and we had to advocate for the women's self-defense class because there was a person in a decision-making position that decided that the women's self-defense class should be gender neutral and it should just be a self-defense class and men should be included. And I don't get offended easily at all, but I was pissed because I'm like, absolutely not. It is a women's self-defense class because the last I checked, when I'm walking through a parking garage, I'm not worried about another woman jumping out and attacking me in the backseat of a car. Sorry, I'm going to get really blunt on that one. But we've also, because I've helped facilitate and co-teach these women's self-defense classes, we have women that have been victims of everything. And they come to the mat, and when they're on the mat and they're in these positions, it is therapy. It's not just empowering and defense, it's therapy. And even where I was in a situation where I got beat up by a female, but I got beat up. I got the shit beat out of me. And I didn't know how to fight. And when we were running a drill, and it was Chris, it was Chris and our grandmaster, Sal, who owns the martial arts studio. I trust both of them implicitly, but I said I needed to do something. I needed to run myself through a drill and I was going to trigger. And so I had Chris grab the back of my head like the woman did and pin me down to the ground. And as soon as he did it, my subconscious and my triggers went and I was like, this is how I die. I had to process through that. So there's so many nuances when it comes to women in law enforcement. Do they need to be treated differently? That's a meh. I don't know what the word is. Not different, but having the trainings where women can come together and say, hey, these are some of the things so that the voices get louder. There's balance and nuances to all of it. Greg, did you have something?
Uh,
Oh, I thought you did.
only that it never mattered to me, male or female. I've worked with so many outstanding female officers, female deputies. Some of the best cops I know were female, and on the flip side, I've worked with male cops that I don't know how they were a cop. I don't know how they got hired. I don't know why they were there, and I didn't want them backing me up. I would take a female backing me up 10 times before I'd take some of these other guys. So it kind of goes both ways. If you can do the job, if you're meant to do the job, then I fully support that, and I don't care whether you're male or female. Too many times I've seen guys that can't do the job and shouldn't have been there, and so I think it's great, and I think females make really good cops.
Well, and I want to just tie this all together too, because we're talking about prioritizing self-care. Women are typically, well, mm, can be good at prioritizing self-care, but what I will say where I'm hesitating is it's okay to prioritize self-care and not have guilt around it. And that's for everybody. That's men and women, but no guilt. If you have kids and you need to go take a day to go to the spa, you're going to the spa. You don't need to feel guilty about it. Or if you need to go to the gym or whatever, removing that guilt. I want to touch on one more thing because prioritizing self-care can also impact the relationship. And when it comes to women in law enforcement, the spouses and the relationship component can get murky in that, where when male and females are working close together, the spouses can be like, I don't know if I like this, because the reality is you are spending the majority of your time with these other people, whether it's male or female, whatever the dynamic is, you're spending more of your life in a work relationship than you are in your own marriage or relationship at home. And so if you're not prioritizing self-care, you're definitely not going to be prioritizing relationship care. And when the relationship is breaking down, the self-care is breaking down, and there's resentment, and there's all these compounding factors, and then the insecurities and stuff, and start looking at, well, it's because you're working closely with this person. That's why you're da 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 da. And I will just speak on, I'm a very confident, secure woman. I trust Chris. He has worked very closely. He has the majority, I think the majority of your friends are female. Law enforcement, first responder, whatever, they're female. I don't, I trust him and I trust them actually. And if there is somebody that I'm like, I don't trust that person, then I will make that known and we have respect to be like, okay, I don't know why you're feeling that way, but I'm going to trust that you're feeling or you're reading something. And so we don't necessarily hang out with that person. But like he had mentioned, he worked very closely with Stephanie and they worked undercover. They had to know each other. That was kind of his work wife at some point. And
Actually, Colton was my work
Colton
wife.
is your work. That's your all like. That's where my jealousy comes in. Freaking Colton. They're very close. No, but with Stephanie, what's actually cool from that female perspective is because she also knows him. And so we can kind of get together and we understand if I need to, if I'm frustrated with him, sorry, I'm just going to throw this way. If I'm frustrated with him, I can call Stephanie and she knows exactly his personality and knows how to read him, that she can actually be somebody that I can lean into and not be insecure or jealous of, if that makes sense. So just if yeah, we're going to talk about relationships and marriage and all of that in a few months on a topic so that we can move that, but taking care of yourself will also strengthen all of those different dynamics and nuances. So I want to, Chris, do you have anything else you want to add on that? All right. So I want to honor everybody's time and thank you guys for being on here. Let's go around really quick and just, again, put in our little 2-second mic drop moments of takeaways for what prioritizing self-care for everyone.
I'll go.
Okay.
Just take care of yourself. If you're working patrol, if you're out in the car and you're sitting in your car for hours and hours and hours in between calls or whatever you're doing, get up, walk around, get out of your car, stretch, be prepared physically and emotionally and mentally, and just work on that self-care and your wellness now, and don't wait until after you retire, because then it's going to be too late and you're going to have a whole career, a whole lifetime worth of stuff that you're going to have to try to work out if you wait until the end. Do it now, stay in shape, stay healthy, and stay safe.
Yeah, just invest in your own time, right? Your own self-care. And don't feel guilty, taking, a few minutes to, an hour, whatever it is, because it's that self-care that's going to, that self-care that you do day to day is what's going to give you longevity in your career, longevity in your personal life, relationships as well. Because if you're good with you, you can be good with just about anybody.
Yeah, Chris, you took my point. That whole issue of feeling guilty about taking time for yourself. We're notorious for that because we're public servants and we're in a profession where it's greater to serve something than self. And taking time for yourself can feel very selfish. It is not. And you have to make that shift in the change. I had an FTO tell me early on in my career, we were talking about code 3 or emergent responses to calls for service, especially officers screaming for backup. And his point was, you're not going to do anybody any good if you don't get there. You want to get there quick, but you got to get there. Well, guess what? The same thing applies to wellness. You're not going to be any good to anybody, even yourself, if you don't take care of yourself first.
Yeah, for me, just make it a priority, right? Like schedule it, do whatever you have to do. Because if you don't schedule it, it's probably not going to get done. Again, just making self-care a priority, it's going to make you a better officer, a better husband, wife, just a better partner, all around person. You'll be able to manage those other stressors way better once you're able to take care of yourself and just get that under control.
Well, we've talked about self-care and the department's role in providing, opportunities for self-care. And if you find that, there are opportunities to improve within the department, you can speak up, you can advocate for that. Not everyone is going to feel comfortable doing that, especially around the topic of wellness and self-care. But I would encourage my fellow officers to not be afraid to talk to each other about the need for self-care, what they're going through, because it is having those, peer-to-peer conversations that I think gets the ball rolling and initiates the change that I think we're all looking for, whether it be, on a departmental level or just within yourself and with the people you're working with. Just having these conversations that we're having right now.
Awesome. Thank you. And my final 2 cents is don't worry, don't wait for it to be perfect. Don't wait to have all the answers. You have to start and you have to stay consistent. So just like if you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to build muscle, you're going to go to the gym, you're going to start with low weights and you're going to, aim to do 5 minutes on the treadmill. And then a year from now, you're going to be like, okay, I can, have different gains, different goals, right? Wellness is the same. You have to start. This is our first live group call and we have 6 people. We're going to stay consistent. We're going to take action. We're going to keep moving the needle. And then 6 months from now, we're going to have 50 to 250 people plus on here because we had to start. If we didn't start today, 6 months from now, we would still be right here. Same with the wellness programs. We are in a culture shift. If you're part of these conversations, you are playing a role, for better or for worse, for the culture shift. So hopefully you're seeing it and you're like, yep, this feels right. This is the way we need to go, because in 5 years from now, this is going to be a completely different conversation. We're not going to be having wellness conversations. Or conferences so much. We're not going to be having people trying to move the needle. The needle will have moved and we'll be on to different ways of improving wellness. But we have to start. Everybody started. So that is my 2 cents, whether it's the individual of just starting to look up a coach or a therapist or acupuncturist, equine therapy, whatever, read a book. I don't care. Do something. Watch the podcast. Yay, you started. Same for the departments. For the departments, if you have nothing in place, reach out to another department that has something in place. That's your first action step. I will always say, reach out to us, reach out to Mike Lawson. He is a wellness coordinator that is nailing it. He's in all of these different things. He's talking to the departments, he's connecting. He knows he can come in and do a consultation of how you get started, what to avoid, what to do. So that is my thing, but start somewhere. And with that, thank you guys all for being here. And next month, we are kicking off with navigating toxic work environments. And at the end of next month, we will be coming back on to do a live and have hopefully more guests coming on to join the conversation and move that needle a little forward too. So thank you all.